play them. Thank you, Sarah. Sarah's obviously started recording. They will play rather jerkily, and I'm hoping that if you want to watch the videos afterwards, you'll be able to go through the YouTube playlist and you'll be able to watch them without any time-lapsey effect on them. Okay, so as I said, first ever Seal Masterclass. My name is Sue Sayer and I'm founder and director of Cornwall Sealgate Research Trust. And I also represent the Seal Alliance. You'll find us all over social media, so please do have a look at our social media channels if you are not already joined up to them. We are a charity regulated by the fundraising regulator, and we've also been selected for the 1% for a Planet network. I'm going to start with sorting out a big picture for seals. I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to tell you about people, places and seals, a little bit of what life might be like as a seal. I'm going to tell you about our photo ID work, the pressures, the many multiple pressures that seals face, and the work that we've been doing on disturbance to try and minimise it. And then the favourite bit for me is the how to think seal, hopefully looking at the world potentially from a seal's perspective. If I'm short of time, I'm going to chop out the Seal Conservation UK section, but if we get time, I will include it. And then I'm going to tell you about one seal who joins up all the dots for us in terms of all these different sections. Please, we will do another link to this. We have got a SurveyMonkey questionnaire and we would love to hear your feedback, particularly as this is the first one. So we'll find out how we can improve next time. And as I said earlier, we will have a playlist that you'll be able to watch the videos. So I got soaked this morning out surveying, needless to say, absolutely poured it down, but I saw this beautiful female. She has currently got a pup at one of our pupping sites. She's called Flag Fox, and she was just wallowing in the shallows this morning before it started tipping with rain. Okay, on to the big picture then, people, places and seals. So this is me. If you told me 20 years ago that I'd be doing this talk now, I wouldn't have believed you. I've done an awful lot of surveying from all sorts of different vessels and places. I very, very, very occasionally do rescues, but I always do it under the guidance of British Divers Marine Life Rescue, who lead on our rescues. But the main stuff that I do these days is trying to give seals a voice, particularly with the public and statutory agencies, in order to find ways that we can help seals and make their lives better. Obviously, in the UK, we have 2 species of seals, and I have to confess to you that most of this talk is going to be about grey seals, which is what I know most about. I know relatively little about common seals, so I'm not going to focus on those very much today. So apologies if that's going to disappoint you. We generally don't share photos of seals looking at the camera, but in this particular case, I'm going to make an exception because it's such a useful diagnostic photo. I was taking the photo with a 2000mm zoom lens, so I didn't disturb the seals, but it's a nuance often lost when you use a photo online. So we are not using photos of seals looking at cameras. Anyway, common seals, proportionately shorter heads, smaller heads, more round in front look. Their fur patterns tend to be teeny weeny dots or outlined rings, and they have a very cat-like appearance with a forehead on their nose profile, as opposed to a grey seal that just generally has a stronger snout and bigger head. They tend to have bigger patches of pattern, and for me, they look very Labradorian. So that's a quick overview of how to tell the difference. Grey seals, which are my speciality, are, if you didn't know, one of the rarest seal species in the world. The reason that they are one of the rarest species is they only live in the North Atlantic. And in the UK, we have over 1/3 of the world's population. That makes them our equivalent of an African elephant, a rare species on our patch. And if we want people in Africa to protect African elephants so we can go and watch them on safari, then we need to reciprocate in the UK. 1/3 of the world's population in the UK, but there are still more red squirrels in the UK than there are grey seals. So this is not a very large number of animals globally. And they're really important to our coastal economies, mainly because people come to see a dolphin and they leave happy because they've seen a seal. Dolphins are not predictable, they're not reliably sighted, seals can be. So in terms of wildlife spotting businesses, they're a really important species. So I've been doing this for 20 years. We do have a timeline graphic to show what we've been up to. There's been a lot of things. If you would like to see the graphic and have a copy of it yourself, you just need to get in touch with us. Email sightings@cornwallsealgroup.co.uk and we'll send you a copy. But it's been a roller coaster 20 years. And I always take the opportunity to thank our current funders, of which there are many, public, private and voluntary, because without them, we can't pay the next generation of marine conservation leaders. I'm a full-time volunteer. Most of our network are volunteers, but nevertheless, volunteers need support and coordination, and we need to pay marine rangers to do that. So our guiding philosophy is that of the Ecozoic. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's an era in which we would share our seas and understand that we are but one species within the global ecosystem, and therefore we are dependent on the rest of the ecosystem. Not that we're going to manage it, not that we're going to look after it, not that we're going to steward it, not that we're in charge of it, but that we are just part of it, and we need to recognise our place within that ecosystem. We're very lucky to have a high-profile patron in Gillian Burke, who you will know from the Spring Watch, Autumn Watch programmes. And currently we have 8 paid rangers, most of whom, well, in fact, all of them are part-time, and that's going to be subject to quite a lot of change. In fact, 2 of them finished at the end of last month. But nevertheless, you can see they are all young people, the next generation of people looking after the marine environment. And we, of course, work in partnership. So this was a partnership with Ghost Net Busters, who helped us clear up this massive buoy that had washed up on the beach. You can see the tiny little seal pup that we did not see until we got to the point of trying to remove this massive buoy. But we are nothing without our partners. It's not about competition, it's all about growing the audience. Not only do we partner with marine conservation charities, but we partner with, for example, this bottom left photo is when we worked with Kurt Jackson in his foundation gallery down in St. Just. But we are these people, our volunteers. We are nothing without them. Half of them, loads and loads of them are not shown here, but we're hugely grateful to every single person who gives us any amount of their time. Truly inspirational, and they are what drive me forward, along with SEALs, of course, because I love them too. And we do primary school events, we'll do secondary school events, university events and family events. This is all about getting our key message out there, which is we have grey seals, we're lucky to have them, let's look after them and keep them there for future generations. And we do have a pop-up mobile marine centre that we can tour around festivals and events. But again, that's something that's run by our volunteers. And we do also appear in some books. If you're interested, you can look them up. It's being recorded, so you can always check them out later. And then we do have a YouTube channel with 18 short talks if you want to learn more about various aspects of our work. And of course, you can follow us on social media. But I wanted to just highlight these 2 most recent talks, which two most recent videos, which if you're doing any work on disturbance and you want to show people the impacts of disturbance, particularly with mothers and pups, they're very useful videos, particularly that mum doesn't feed her pup because she's fearful video. She actually comes to feed her pup and then heads back into the water because she sees people. Very sad, but quite powerful. And we do send out monthly Seal Southwest newsletters. So if you want one of those, you just need to get in touch. So life as a seal then. Well, life as a seal is amazing. They live in the wild Atlantic Ocean. I'm not sure that I would like to do that. Over which they have no control. Oh, that's very different to my world. And that environment over which they have no control is becoming less predictable. So the environment that they live in is very complicated and it's changing, which is also pretty terrifying. All change in terms of food availability, all change in terms of the amount of plastic and net that's in the water, acidification and warming, sea level changes, extreme weather events, massive ground swells. We're chucking a lot of silt down our rivers into the sea, and that's all before we start on some of the human activity stuff, what we're doing around the coast, what's happening in harbours. kind of the outflows that we have going into the sea and marine debris, but I will focus on some of those a little bit more later. So this is a relatively poor quality time lapse of a seal haul out, which I hope you can see now. There are lots of seals on this beach, but the tide's coming in and you can see what the seals are doing is tracking up the beach. The sun comes out, the shadows move across the beach, and then the tide starts going out and they start moving out with it. It's all change. Even if you look at a haul out and you think that things are not happening very much, it's all changing all of the time, and they will feel safest in the sea. So they're going to track up with the sea and back down with the sea in the hope of keeping in the safest possible place. So at my site that I've studied for 20 years, that was the mainland haul out beach. And in the summer, the seals tend to move to this offshore haul out, which is presumably closer to their feeding grounds. I apologise for the complexity of this graph. I want to try and show you what's going on really. Along the bottom are months. Up the side are the average number of seals, the mean count of seals. So you can see if you want to come to my site and see lots of seals, you need to come between January, March and October and November. Sorry, October and December. The dark black line is the 20-year average. And in the last 5 years, we've got the light bluey greeny line. And what it would be easy to say from this is that we've got more seals. Oh, our population's increasing. But actually, I'm not sure this is what this is showing very much. What it's showing is that we've got a lot of seasonal variation. So if you want to find out anything about seal numbers, you need to count them right the way throughout the year, not just for part of the year, because you get a very different story in June when it's nice and lovely for us to count, compared to being cold and wet in the winter when you're going to see a lot more seals here, for example. You need to find out what your seasonal distribution is. So we need to record across the season, but you also need to do it for more than 1 year to find out what's going on. Do we think there's an increase? Well, actually, I think there's an increase January to March and October to December, but not during those summer months, which suggests that maybe it's not so much to do with a population increase, but potentially a redistribution of seals, a recolonization of a site during the winter months. It could be increasing population, but it could also be preferential use of this site or something else we haven't even thought of. So I guess what I'm trying to say to you here is it's very complicated. Don't just look at numbers and assume everything is okay. We have a growing global world human population, but it doesn't stop us looking at the welfare implications for humans. So the same should apply for seals. And then when I say it's complicated, if you look at the bottom of this graph, it shows when seals were onshore and offshore at those two different sites. So between 2000 and 2003, you could set your watch by them. They would leave the beach in May and they would return in October. In 2004, they didn't return at all to the mainland. And I said 2003, they didn't return to the mainland at all. But when they returned in 2004, they came back in August, not October. And then from 2015 to 17, they never really left the beach. And then in the last 3 years, we've gone back to what it was like between 2004 and 2015. So what I'm saying to you is seasonal variation is critically important. Do it over the long term, really important. And that's the only way you're ever going to get an idea about what seals are really up to, because it's stupidly complicated. So when we look at Cornwall and what's happening at our sites in the southwest, well, we've had some haul out site extensions, by which I mean the sites weren't used in the summer and now they are, although some of those have stopped being used. This is on the south coast. This is a haul out extension on the south coast. They never used to use this beach in the summer. Now they do. And this one is a big shocker. This is a haul out relocation completely. In that they were using one beach mostly, and then they started using a beach around the other side of the headland, which they started to do just before lockdown 1, and they have continued to do since the lockdowns have been lifted. So it's interesting that we've got some haul out relocations and then potentially some haul out recolonizations of sites that were lost because of human activity potentially. This is a site that started being reused on the south coast that in the 20 years I've been doing this, we haven't known it's been used. And then we've also got some new pupping sites. So this was the first live pup on this beach that we've recorded in 20 years. It doesn't mean it's the first one. They could have been doing this a long time, way back, and then stopped for some reason. But it's great that we've got a new pupping site. And if we look at climate change and changing and shifting timescales, well, I'm going to go bottom left first of all. In terms of the numbers of seals, our peak season has got earlier and earlier. In 2013-14, it was April. Since then we've had 5 years when it's been March, 2 years when it's been February, and 1 year each when it's been January and December. And last year the peak haul out occurred in December. So, you know, that's a 4-month shift earlier, which is a bit of a shocker. So it's all change in that respect. And then pupping has also got earlier. It's gone from October followed by November to September followed by August, then September followed by October. And then last year it was September followed by August. And also the pupping season has shrunk and got shorter. So not only has it got earlier, but it's also got shorter. And of course, that's brought it. We're now pupping now. This is peak holiday season. We've now got more potential conflicts between people and seals. Okay, I'm just going to take you through some pup numbers for the last 4 years. In 2018, pre-September, we had 5. 1 rescue. 2019, 14, 1 rescue. 2020, 21 rescue. And then 2021, 21 and 1 rescue. So it's easy to think there's an increase. But again, it's more complicated than that. It's just because we haven't got the full season, we haven't got a mortality rate, and this, just because I've taken pre-September, it looks like we've got an increase when in actual fact we've got a shift to earlier in the month. So let's all just assume that whatever's happening, it's complicated and we need to take the long-term view. Okay. This is a spectacular wildlife site, no matter where you are in the world. And this is what we need to look after and what we need to protect for sure, because people would travel the world over to come and see a wonderful wildlife site like that. It's fantastic. Okay, I'm going to start talking about photo ID. It's a very powerful, non-invasive research tool. It's what we do routinely. According to the Sea Mammal Research Unit, all of these things can be ascertained from doing photo ID from a seal's unique fur pattern. But you can tell by the graphic on the right that it is potentially pretty complicated. For us, every seal counts. On the left, we've got Fairy Girl. In the middle, we've got Shadow Puppet. And on the right, we've got Tulip. Beautiful adult females, each with their own unique fur pattern, each with their own individual habits, movements and character. You would not like to be described as a human being as part of a human population and treated just as a generic part of that population. You're an individual. So are seals, and that's how we like to see them. So what's photo ID about? Well, can you do this? Okay, challenge on for you. So you can put the answer in the chat if you want. The seal on the bottom left is called Boomers, and she's got a bit of a black t-shirt pattern here with a dot underneath it. Can you tell which of the other seals matches her? Is it number 1, number 2, or number 3? I'm hoping you can see number 2 and number 3. They're a little bit covered by my banner of people. I'm going to put that down there. Okay, so you can put your answers in the chat. Is it 1, 2, or 3 that matches Boomer's pattern in the bottom left? Basically, matching patterns is child's play, really, but what we tend to do as adults is overthink it a little bit. And of course, what you can see is difficult here. The angle makes a difference. Whether the animal's wet or dry makes a difference. So it can be quite difficult, but in theory, matching patterns is not difficult. Why do we do this? Why is it important to have individual connections with seals? Well, bottom left, there's a seal called Medallion Man. A photo of him in 2010 and 2017. He's a beautiful seal. And in 2017, he met his idol, which was Chris Packham and Chris Packham's daughter. Actually, Chris Packham's daughter, I think, was a little bit less confident than Chris. And he absolutely loved seeing Medallion Man. I filmed twice with Chris Packham. And the first time he told me that seals didn't really float his boat. The second time I filmed with him, he met Medallion Man, and he came out of the water and he said, "I love seals." That's the power of an individual connection between an individual human being and an individual seal. As soon as we told him what Medallion Man's story was, he was just completely besotted with that particular seal. So I have 3 seals to show you that I'm besotted with. This is one called Hook. I'm a bit soft for an adult male grey seal. So this is an adult male grey seal called Hook, and you can see his seal calendar. Years across the top, months down the side, and colours represent different locations. So the numbers are the number of monthly IDs. So we saw him an awful lot up to 2007, and after that we've seen him a lot less. Rarely see him in the summer, but since 2012 he's stopped pretty much visiting us during the summer to the autumn and early winter. Not quite sure why. Maybe he's beach mastering somewhere. We're really not 100% sure. But it's interesting to see with his change in life stage, so his visit patterns also changed. This is Chairlift, who is the first seal that I met in 2020 and ever re-identified. He's an adult male as well, very calm, gentle, non-breeding adult male. And how do I know that? Well, you see his visit pattern hasn't changed very much. He visits a little bit less than he used to, but he still visits us during the pupping season. Can you see that brown square? The brown is when he visited Southwest Wales, and I think he tried to beach master and mate with females for the very first time. Clearly not that successful, because he is now one of the majority of non-breeding males in the seal population. Most males don't breed. Only a few very special seals get to beach master. More of that later in the Think Seal section. And then this seal I've known since 2001. She's a female, obviously light spotty female, whereas males tend to be darker and plainer. She gobsmacked me when I discovered she has pups in the Isle of Man. It's 450 kilometres away, and she swims backwards and forwards between Cornwall and the Isle of Man to have her pups. So what does photo ID tell us, and what do we do, and how do we collect this data? Well, we're very lucky. This is all from 2020. We're very lucky because we have all those volunteers. So in 2020, we had 20 photo ID hubs, community-based people who were surveying seals on their patch. Lots of volunteers, and they did 12 surveys every single day of the year. Average 12 surveys. That's a lot of data. We did 6 boat surveys, we covered a lot of locations, and incredibly, we took 140,000 photos pretty much. From the 140,000 photos, we got 12,000 plus IDs. I think my personal best was 122 seal IDs from a single survey, so I was pretty chuffed. 7 seals that I first met in 2000 were still going 20 years later. We had a lot of entangled seals, a lot of disturbed seals, but we also saw a lot of surviving rehabilitated seals, which was great. More of those later. What do we do with all that information? Because there's no point collecting it unless you do something with that data. So what we do is we use the data to give seals a voice in public consultations. We managed to help support, we can't take credit for it because it wasn't down to us, but we helped support a law change that finally in March 2021 made it illegal for seals to be shot in the UK, England and Wales in particular. It's also illegal in Scotland. We had 2 Seal Network UK meetings. I'm going to tell you a little bit about that later. Clean Catch UK meetings, a little bit about that later. And we currently have 3 SSSIs where seals are protected. And that's really important because it's illegal to disturb them in these 3 SSSIs, which is quite unusual for seals. And then we did the public conservation stuff, you know, with signs and banners, site closures when we got pups, gear removals with our partners, pup watches with British Divers Marine Life Rescue, and we share all this information with 4 global partners. So if you wanted to set up a local seal hub, what would it look like? Well, this is what our Lou Seal Hub looks like. It was our pioneering first hub we ever set up. So Lightning the Seal is saying, meet her team of amazing people. I know some of you are on this call, so thank you very much. And then they go through a complicated process of processing the photos to come out with the data that we can then share with statutory agencies. This is what the Loo hub processing system looks like, and our latest hub that's just got a brand new coordinator, Jeremy. This is the Lizard hub and what the processing looks like. So it's complicated, but you have to start somewhere, and taking the photo is where you start. It's great to have all these people working on photo ID with us. Okay, so I showed you some calendars before, but look how different this seal calendar is. Like you, every seal is different in the places that it visits around the world at different times. So this is a seal called Ghost. She's actually a world record breaker as far as we can ascertain. She's had 17 pups in 18 years on pretty much exactly the same beach, bar the first. We only ever see her during the pupping season when she's got her pup. I worried a lot in 2018 when she didn't come back to have a pup. I was panicking big time. But when she returned in 2019, we were all delighted. She's still having pups, but that pattern of visits is very different to the 3 that I have already showed you. Likewise, by having photo ID hubs around the coast, we can track seals as they move round the coast. So Quaverstar visits the south coast, the Lizard team, and also my team at West Cornwall, and she tracks round the north and south coast. Just as a complete aside, can you see she's got some bloody snot on her nose? That bloody snot means she's got a respiratory infection and a cold, but they recover from it. So that's what we're able to tell from photo ID. We can tell their health changes over time, and you can see they've got a cold, but they recover from it like us if they have a healthy immune system. Okay, I said I was not going to talk much about common seals, but this is one who we routinely see. Didn't used to see him very much. First met him in Loo, and now he spends a lot of time on the Roseland and not so much in Loo. Got a massive scar on his back, which we monitor with British Divers Marine Life Rescue. We originally thought it was a wound, but actually we think it's more likely to be a tracking infection. We're watching this space really. And if you see a seal on a big mooring buoy like this, the chances are it's a common seal, not a grey seal, because grey seals are not agile enough to do this. So what happens, I think, is the common seal will launch themselves out of the water, land on top of the buoy, go, whoa, like this as they try and balance on the buoy. And then eventually they balance and they get to stay there. And then you get to see them in this spectacular way. This is Lucille, who spends a lot of time in Loo. That's why she's Lucille. But she excited us in 2020. Can you see from her calendar that she mostly is seen in Loo between April and September? You can pretty much set your watch by her again. She's there a lot, April to September. And then all of a sudden in March 2020, she was seen in South Devon, which was very exciting to find her sneaking, looking through some barriers in South Devon. But this seal is amazing. She's not just been seen in South Devon, but she's also been seen all the way around the coast up in North Cornwall. So she's done a huge, great big long commute, which is great. And we know from some of the team in the Devon hub, the South Devon hub, that actually we had one seal who was seen in Padstow who swam 300 kilometres in 3 days to get back to South Devon. 300 kilometres in 3 days. That's what the books say. They can do 100 kilometres in a day. Seems like Flower proved the books right. And then you get these completely different changing patterns. So Seahorse, I used to see her quite regularly. I recognise her straight away. She's easy to spot. And she stopped visiting West Cornwall completely and now seems to prefer the Pentyre site. I've no idea where she goes in the spring and the winter. She used to come to me and she doesn't anymore. So she's another one that's changed her visit pattern. And then this is a rescue. This is Dan Jarvis and Nat Waddington, the vet for British Divers Marine Life Rescue, rescuing the first pup of the season in 2020, last year. And what was fascinating, if you can see in the inset photo, is she reappeared at the site she was rescued from, but she'd swum all the way around from the south coast of Cornwall, where she was released, back to this site. So this pup was released on the 27th of November, and she only took 12 days to swim all the way around those treacherous waters at Land's End back up to the north coast. So they're fully functioning at 3 weeks. The only thing that's a bit of a flaw in the plan is that mum didn't teach them what to eat and how to catch it. And that's why disturbance for young seals is a bit of an issue, but I'll talk more about that later. Okay, so if you want to sum up, where do seals go from the southwest of England? Well, surprisingly, they go all the way up to the Isle of Man, Ireland, Wales, France, Devon, Dorset, and we've even had 2 common seals from Belgium and Holland. And we know that because they happen to be tag seals. So when I started, I had no idea how well-travelled seals were. Presumably they are rotating their feeding sites. You can't keep feeding in the same place, otherwise you run out of food. So you rotate your feeding sites. And maybe if you don't find a good feeding site straight away when you're a youngster, you have to keep going. And maybe you get a really big range of sites. Maybe if you're crop rotating your feeding sites in the sea and you find a great patch really quickly, well, you don't need to go much further, so you have a small range. Who knows? Okay, I'm going to start talking about pressures now, and I'm just going to take a break after this section. I'm hoping we've got a little bit of time for you to have a bit of a comfort break and stuff. But this is the list of pressures that we have observed as seals in the southwest. Mostly human impacts, and they all act cumulatively. So we're really lucky in the southwest to have Cornwall Wildlife Trust Marine Strandings Network, who have volunteers themselves who record dead seals all the way around the coast. And you can perhaps see from those red bars on the graph above that actually we have more dead seals than ever before. It's slightly worrying, and in January to March 2021, we had 120, which was half the year's allocation. So I'm not sure 2021 is going to be any better. But what our photo ID work shows is that this male in the photo is another male who's died in his prime. He was 6 years old maximum, and yet he's dead. So he's not living to full term, he's not living to his average life expectancy, and we have quite a few young males who are like this. So again, you know, if you're looking at mortality, you need to be linking that with your photo ID to get an idea of how old these animals are when they die. And then climate change. Well, how does climate change affect seals? Well, it's obvious to imagine that sea level rise is going to affect their haul outs, and you're going to lose some haul outs and gain some new ones. But one of the key ways it seems to be affecting our seals is cliff falls. So in the top photo, the top half is the same place as the bottom half. These are the 2 seal pupping caves, and this rockfall happened after the start of the pupping season. It happened almost instantaneously. There is a video of it on YouTube. The whole cliff gave way and blocked those pupping caves. And that seal that I showed you, Boomers, that you did the photo ID activity, matching it to 1, 2, and 3. The last time I saw her was outside those pupping caves just before this rockfall, and I haven't seen her since. So I'm pretty sure she died with her pup in that rockfall. And then, of course, you just have to be a seal on a haul out in the wrong place at the wrong time, and even a small rockfall can kill you. So we need to try and take some actions, you know, think about renewable energy, drive and fly less, all those things that are going to help with climate change. Bycatch is a really big issue. If you look at the DEFRA data, in 2015 alone, in the southwest, this is Devon and Cornwall, we had 310 dead bycaught grey seals estimated. SMRU are a bit shocked by this because they don't understand where all these animals are coming from. Well, again, it's because it's complicated. And this is obviously a very sad photo of a dead juvenile male under a year old who's been caught up in a live operational net and died. Solutions to this? Well, we encourage people to eat local line caught fish because nets tend to do more bycatch than pots, for example, or lines. Entanglement is a really big issue. Every year in Cornwall, for about the last 6 years, we've had approximately 100 different seals that have been photo identified as entangled. Some of them survive for years, but many of them perish within a very short period of time. This animal was very lucky. He's called Lucky Star. He was lucky in one way and not in another. He was lucky because we saw him. He was unlucky because it took 3 months to rescue him. And by the time he was rescued, he had a hideous entanglement in the back of his neck. Why did it take so long to rescue him? Because every time we saw him, he got disturbed back into the water. But British Divers Marine Life Rescue successfully managed to rescue him finally 3 months later, even though he got this horrible wound. How do they get entangled? Well, these young animals learn through play. So they see a bit of net in the water. You can see in the top right photos, see a bit of net in the water. They play with it, over it, under it, round it. And then their panic response when they get caught up is to spin. And if you spin in a large amount of net, you cocoon yourself. And the chance of untangling from that is very slim. I'm pleased to be able to say that animal did uncocoon himself, but he was very lucky. And all of this adds up to the fact that we have the second highest rate, I'm sorry, the slide's not quite right, the second highest rate of entanglement for any phosid seal species anywhere in the world. And it's on our patch. So we need to try and find solutions. We need to keep doing beach cleans, street cleans even, stop anything looped getting into the sea and cut anything that's looped before we put it into the bin. Because entanglement doesn't just affect seals. You can see a very sad photo on the right of a dead adult heron and a dead heron chick. The chick died because of angling line, and the heron died because, sorry, the big heron died because of angling line, and the chick died because of chafe gear off a trawl net. Microplastics is another pressure. We've been surveying microplastics for a global trawl share project. They're tiny plastics under 5 millimeters, and every single trawl we've ever done with this globally standard bit of kit has chucked up microplastics. Solutions, well, the government's acted on microbeads in cosmetics, which is great, but do you use a natural scourer at home that doesn't have plastic on it? Do you wash your synthetic clothes in a guppy bag that traps the microplastics before they get into the sea? Those are potential solutions for that problem. We all know about macroplastics because they're really in our face. This is a very sad photo of a seal pup being brought up on a beach surrounded by our detritus. So we need to try and do something about this. This isn't good enough. It's our watch, our patch. It's not good enough. Feeding seals is also an issue in Cornwall. It might not be with you, but it leads to potential issues. Seals get hooked, but worse still, they can get hit by boats. So this top right photo is a seal called Box Desk on the day she got gouged by a propeller. Bottom right photo is her rear end that was gouged by the propeller as the boatman reversed because he did not know she was behind the boat being fed. Harbours are dangerous places for seals. I'm pleased to be able to say that Box survived the boat strike, but it nearly cut her tail off, and had it cut her tail off, she probably wouldn't have survived. But less serious potentially, but still pretty awful if you imagine a big hook in your lip. Feeding seals in harbours tends to lead to hooked seals from angling line. In one summer we had, in August, we had all 3 of these seals hooked, and the seal on the right is a seal called Trunk. Last year we had a hook 3 times in one summer. So, you know, it's a really big issue for seals. And help dogs and help seals. If you've got a dog, or if you see somebody with a dog around seals and it's off the lead, encourage them to put it on the lead, because this seal was the last seal that left the beach. It was the smallest one left. The dog disturbed all the others off the beach and it bit the last one on its way. Want to try and avoid that. And then disturbance. So disturbance is something, the great news is we can all do something about today. Act today. It's relatively simple by just giving seals space. I hate this photograph. This photograph is a massive, great big pregnant adult female who has decided that what she's looking at is more scary than the drop. So she is just about to tombstone, like a human would, off the high rock onto the rocks actually below, and then into the sea. This is a classic way to break your bottom jaw or to crack a rib. So it's a pretty hideous photo all round. What are the impacts of disturbance on seals? Well, all sorts of varied impacts, some of which are obvious and some of which are slightly invisible and delayed. So panic, much like you would if you had somebody walk into your house when you were sleeping on a Sunday afternoon in your favourite chair, you'd panic, you'd have a stress hormone response, fast breathing, fast heart, all that kind of stuff. Interrupted rest, seals have to rest to digest their food in order to get the energy from it. They actually get cold shot by rushing into the sea. If they rush over a beach, they'll get road rash, literally just grazing those flippers as they rush over the shingle, break a bone, potentially rip out a claw or gash their bellies, all sorts of impacts. And now I know what to look for. I look for the blood trails left by stampeding seals. On this particular day, there were 17 different blood trails left heading to the sea. And how do these happen? Well, they happen in stampedes, and I'm about to show you a video of a stampede, but I just wanted to throw in another bit of information first. We're trying to encourage people. This is brand new. I've not really talked to anyone else publicly about this much before. We're talking to people about risk assessmenting for seals. So on this photo, there are 4 seals. This one up at the top, this one a little bit lower down, this one quite a lot lower down, these ones by the sea. We've got this new potential, still work in progress, potential outcome of disturbance, and then the likelihood and probability of that disturbance incident happening. And just like risk assessmenting, you times the 2 to get a low, medium or high risk. So this seal up here, it's above high water mark and it's now low tide. If you disturb this seal, the chances are it will have a life-threatening injury. What is the likelihood of it happening? Well, it's possible. So when you times those together, you've got really high risk. Same for this seal that's at high water. This one, well, it's slightly lower because it's going to potentially take an injury that's probably going to take a while to heal if it gashes itself, because it's got quite a lot of rocks to go over, but it won't be a life-threatening injury. And then the ones near the water, well, if they go into the water, they will still be a medium level risk. Whereas this seal that is wallowing in the water and being approached by a boat, well, it will have raised heart and breathing rates, and it's quite likely and probable that that will happen, but it will still only be a low risk. So we're just trying to get people to think about the levels of risk that you see. I think I've got a video of this later. I'm terribly sorry, but this is another example of a risk assessmenting, and I will show you the video of this. But this is where there are a lot of seals with a really horrible substrate of rocks for them to go over. So this would constitute a high level disturbance as well. And then all of these impacts, these pressures that I've just gone through, actually act cumulatively on seals. So we have, for example, our seal skeleton. The seal skeleton was collected by and recorded by Rob Wells on the Rose on St Austell Bay. We picked him up and we had him articulated and put back together. And when we got him put back together, we were shocked. Did we just get lucky to get an unlucky seal, or do all seals suffer like this? Well, what do I mean? Well, I mean, he had toe infections that were obvious on a post-mortem on the beach. Well, maybe not that serious, but he possibly died of a sinus infection on the right-hand side. The sinus infection was so bad, it had done what sinus infections that are not treated can do. It had eaten the cheekbone away, and that was most likely the cause of death. I've had a conversation with a vet recently. They definitely eat the bone away, probably the infection tract of his brain. He may have been quite out of it on the day that he died, but the rest of his body had a big story to tell. Down at his rear end in the top left, the sacrum, which is the strongest bone in the body, was actually deformed by a severe trauma. It was bent. Strongest bone in the body was actually bent, most likely from a boat strike or perhaps a massive bash in a storm. That would have put his spine out of alignment and affected his mobility potentially for life. He had 2 broken vertebrae processes, possibly one post mortem, but one certainly pre-mortem. That was probably his most recent injury, a broken backbone. That's not going to be very pleasant. And then he had 2 broken ribs here, really severely broken. His ribs had tried really hard to heal and had not been able to do it, because for a diving animal, the rib cage is constantly contracting. And for an animal that's hauling over the land, those bones are constantly moving. They won't heal. So they would have been very painful, possibly 2 years before he died, and really hideous. But the most shocking of all is this particular seal had also been non-lethally shot. Not legally shot, illegally shot with a shotgun, of which there would have been a minimum of 30 pellets, only one of which remained that was actually still attached to his rib cage because his bone had grown around it. So it was a long time ago he'd been shot, and he would have had lots of pellets in his flesh. And this is just one animal. And it shows really, really well that our impacts are cumulative. Okay, I'm going to take a 5-minute break. If you've got questions and you want to shove them in the chat, that's great. I'm not necessarily going to be able to answer all of them, but I'll give a go with some of them. If you need a toilet break, go and take one. We're just going to stop. I will start again in 5 minutes. Bye-bye. I'm going to go on mute for a minute and stop sharing my screen. It'd be nice to be able to see you. Yay, loads of people, that's great. Very nice to see you. Do put your questions in the chat. Oh my word, we have 88 things in the chat. I'm glad you're really enjoying it. Thank you, Jeremy Gilson. That's very nice of you. Very lovely. How long do seals live roughly? Well, the books say, I haven't been doing it long enough to be sure, to be honest. The books say 25 on average for a male and 30 for a female. Apparently testosterone gets for females, gets for males as it does with human males. The progesterone that we have and the estrogen that we have tend to protect our hearts, so they tend to live a bit longer, but I haven't been doing it long enough to know if the books are right, and they're often wrong about stuff. Other stuff, do you have a record of rehabilitated seals pupping successfully? Yes, we do, definitely. One of the seals that I saw this morning is called Snowdrop, and she's a rehabilitated seal. The great news is we've also got a Beachmaster rehabilitated seal at the moment called Jenga, who's beachmastering and is the dominant male up at one of our North Coast sites. So yes, we do. I think the longest rehabbed seal that we've managed to track, we've tracked for 16 years. Probably longer actually now, maybe longer than 16, but we've just had a paper on our post-release monitoring of rehab seals accepted by the Marine Mammal Science Journal, so hopefully that will be out there fairly soon. That's very nice, thank you, Matt. Would be interested to know though thoughts on diving and snorkeling seal disturbance. So actually, Matt, we generally advise people to not seek out encounters with seals in the sea, because that tends to be near haul-outs, and it's a very bad thing to swim or snorkel or dive within 200 meters of a hauled seal, because what you'll do is potentially either disturb them off or encourage them off through curiosity, and either way you've changed their behavior and disturbed their resting pattern. Obviously people come across seals accidentally and encounter them in the sea, and that's perfectly okay. One of the things I'll cover in a minute hopefully is how to mitigate disturbance when you come across them, but it's a difficult one, Matt, because I really want people to enjoy and watch seals, but actually encouraging them to go into the sea to spend time in a place where they know there will be seals. When will that stop? And my experience of people visiting seals on land is that it generally doesn't stop, and it just carries on forever and increases. So that's why we take the policy, although all our policies are, watch this space, we do change them in the light of experience, but our policy is currently we don't encourage people to actively seek encounters of seals in the water. Beep analysis is done for dolphins. Yes, Louise. And there is a seep process for seals that's very similar that we use in Cornwall. That's all I should say about it, really, because I don't know enough about it. You need to speak to somebody at Cornwall Wildlife Trust Marine Standings Network who run that, which is really great. Yes, you can use the data on entangled seals. We do have a paper that we've published on entangled seals. It was published in Marine Pollution Bulletin in 2012. And that's how we know we've got the second highest rate of entanglement of any phosid seal species anywhere in the world. So do look that paper up. If you're really interested, we also have a commissioned report that we did for World Animal Protection about entanglement. So you can email and ask for a copy of that, sightings@cornwallsealgroup.co.uk. Yes, please, if you're in Norfolk, check out the Norfolk Seal Project page, and also check out the Wash and North Norfolk Marine Partnership page as well, because they're two active groups on your patch for sure. Okay, I'm going to stop there and take a sip of tea, and then I'm going to start sharing my screen again. I hope you managed to get a cup of tea or go to the toilet. That'd be great. See what I mean? There's an awful lot to know about seals. Okay, I'm going to restart. I think that's approximately 5 minutes. I'm not great at watching time actually when I'm doing this, but I am trying. Okay, so disturbance, I said, is the good news. This is the one that we can all do something about, and we need to try and minimize it through action. That's what mitigation is all about. So until 2019, this was the only data we had. It's very complicated, I know. All you need to do is look at the red bits. The top set of data shows the number of seals impacted by disturbance on our patch each year. And you can see that it gets darker red towards the right. However, 2020, we had a slight decrease in number of seals disturbed. And the reason for that was COVID. March, February to July, we had a big drop in seal disturbance because we were all locked down. But August, when lockdown was lifted, was the worst August we've ever had on record in terms of the number of seals disturbed. But you can also see in that right column that there's some seasonality to this. And actually, Easter is a really bad time for disturbance, as is the end of the year. And what we've discovered from this is more seals are disturbed when there are more seals about. So if you remember that graph, lots of seals around in the early and late part of the year. That's when more seals get disturbed because they spook each other. It's like a domino effect. One seal gets scared and it scares the rest of them. The bottom set of data is about the number of incidents of disturbance. And again, you've got a similar pattern of getting more and more each year. But you can also see there is a seasonality to the number of incidents of disturbance. And it's much more prevalent during the summer holidays when there are more people about. So when there are more people about around our coast, we get more disturbance incidents. So the two key factors here are the number of people around and the number of seals about, and that causes a perfect storm. So we decided in 2019 to do some data, systematic, rigorous science data on this, as opposed to our ordinary volunteers on their routine surveys, just counting how many seals were scared, seriously disturbed into the sea, from the land into the sea. That's what that data was I was showing you. So we did this survey project, and this diagram shows what 2 hours looks like on a seal haul out. Lots of different activities, tripper boats, non-motorised boats and other motorised boats, lots of activity all around this place where the seals are trying to rest. I found that really scary when I first saw it, because for a seal, disturbance is always a waste of energy. Sometimes it will result in injury and it can be fatal. So in 2020, we applied for the Green Recovery Challenge Fund and got it, which is really lucky because it's the only big grant money we got in 2020, thank goodness, to do our PPPP surveys, our People Protecting Precious Places surveys. Repeating the surveys we've done in 2019 at 4 different sites. So we can get some really robust data about what's happening in terms of the trend of disturbance, and to see how bad or not disturbance is. It also allowed us to set up a stakeholder group to try and solve disturbance at a particular site. And we agreed some nationally agreed signs and leaflets. We always work with WISE, the Wildlife Safe Scheme, which is the nationally accredited scheme for boat operators and adventure operators. And we've done an awful lot of disturbance awareness raising. So what do we record on these surveys? Well, I'm not going to go through it all, but basically we do seal recording on the left and people recording on the right. And then we see what the overlap and what the impact of those two are. And to cut a long story short, disturbance events during our surveys, 2 hours over low tide at these 4 sites, they showed that at best, seals were disturbed once every 27 minutes, and at worst, seals were disturbed once every 14 minutes. And that got us really seriously thinking. This was the data from 2019. Be interesting to see what the 2021 data shows. But we were also able at the 4 different sites to look at the causes. And this was fascinating because what it showed is the biggest area of each pie chart is different, a different cause. Newquay, it was air-based. Mounts Bay, it was split between non-motorised boat and tripper boats. St Ives 1, it was mostly ribs, and St Ives 2, it was mostly tripper boats. So what this told us is we can't impose a one-shop, one-size-fits-all solution to disturbance. We need to customise the solution to each place, each sensitive seal site. So that's why we set up this stakeholder group. It's a community group. It's open to businesses, people who work in the St Ives Bay area, people who live in the St Ives Bay area, people who do work by the coast, people who work inland. Anyone who's got an interest in marine life in St Ives Bay, we invited them all to a meeting run by Katie, who's our research ranger, who also runs these PPPP surveys. Got everyone together and to talk about potential solutions. What solutions do we think might work here? And what's actually going to be logistically possible? And what are the people who are actually going to be involved in the change and the solutions? What are they going to sign up to? It's work in progress. We've had 2 meetings. It's been really successful. The 3rd meeting is going to be the key one, and it's coming up in October. If you're interested in that process, you just need to get in touch. sightings@cornwallseal.co.uk, but you know what it is. Okay, another thing that we've done is we've taken this photos of seals online policy that I mentioned right at the start. We are no longer posting photos of seals looking at the camera. We never put photos of lots of seals online because it always leads to the question, where is this? And then somebody will always answer it. And if you give a specific site name away online, it drives up visitor numbers and it drives up disturbance levels. So we're just erring on the side of caution. We do want people to see and enjoy seals. We just don't want to be responsible for adding to that problem. So we don't use photos of seals looking at the camera. We always take them from distance. And we try and get photos like this. It's not the sharpest image in the world, but it's natural wild behaviour between a male and a female seal having a great time together. We do the small numbers of seals. We've used generic site locations, so St Ives Bay rather than the specific site name. And it's work in progress because we do have a lot of resources with seals looking directly at the camera, and we're not going to chuck them away. We will phase them out for sure. Another aspect of our work is to try and change the law. So it's illegal to disturb a whale or a dolphin. Apart from in a SSSI, it's not illegal to disturb a seal. So we're working on that. We do have our parliamentary petition, which we'd like you to sign up if you haven't already. Well done to Norfolk. They're doing great on the petition. But we're wanting to change the Conservation of Seals Act. So we've had a meeting with the Environment Minister, George Eustace, on the left, and his Undersecretary for the Environment, Rebecca Powell. We've had meetings separately with both of them to talk about this. We want disturbance and harassment added to the Conservation of Seals Act to make it illegal to disturb a seal, as it is illegal now to take, injure or kill a seal. We also want the Wildlife Legislative Review Green Paper to include seals. I don't think it would have done until we had these conversations. And we also want the triple SI process to be reviewed, because at the minute, if you want to add seals to a triple SI citation, you have to go back and redesignate the whole site for everything, which is silly. And so Natural England are looking into that, work in progress. So please do. The last time I looked, we had 18,000 plus signatures on our petition on the bottom left, strengthening laws to protect seals. Please do sign up and please do share it. We've also got on the right, and this is all down to a lady called Mary Tester of the Thames Seal Group, who was very upset by Freddie Mercury, the seal's death, as he was euthanized after a dog attack. Mary has been so geared up by this and motivated by this. She's got this petition going and she's got this early day motion. So well done, Mary. She's got 25 MPs signed up to the early day motion, even though it turns out these days most MPs don't sign up to early day motions. But she's got about 75, maybe slightly more than 75 MPs supporting it already. And then she's also managed to get 2 MPs to look into writing a 10-minute rule bill that will get the Conservation of Seals Act changed. But our next step will be to write an open letter to government, which we will share with the media and which we will want everyone to kind of back up and support. Okay, next section is Think Seal. Okay, this is my favorite section. Okay, I'm going to talk you through, oops, apologies, just skipped over. I'm going to talk you through the fact that if you want to liken seals to anything, they're most like seabirds. Seabirds need the sea, but they need the land in order to nest and replicate themselves. So seals are quite similar to seabirds. I'm going to talk about rest, digestion, socializing, pupping, and replenishing emergency oxygen supplies. These are where the videos come in. So Sarah is going to put the playlist in the chat for you fairly soon. Don't watch them now because you'll miss the talk, but do go back to them afterwards and watch the playlist because you'll get slightly smoother videos during that. Okay, so this is an adult male grey seal climbing out of the water. It never ceases to amaze me how good climbers these seals are. But the point I want you to take away from this is that was a lot of energy. It takes a lot of energy for a seal to come out of the water to rest. And if we scat them back in really quickly, we've wasted all that energy. This is a video I took last Monday. No, what day are we now? Thursday. Yeah, I took last Monday. And it's of a rehab seal, for the person who asked me about this, who is pupping on the beach. But it's low tide and she has got to come out to feed her pup. Look how much energy and effort it is for this mama to come out, find and then feed her pup. Not only going up is it a lot of energy, but it's also pretty risky for her to go down as well. And if she gets scared at any point while she's doing this, she's got to go back in reverse over these rocks and she's going to injure herself and cause some really serious damage to herself. So seals use a lot of energy to come out of the water. This is one of my favorite seals called Three Scars. I've had to speed it up in the middle. It actually appeared on Springwatch last year. He's easing himself back into the cold water. I had to speed it up because he took so long easing himself back into the cold water because he didn't want his sensitive nose and his sensitive bottom to get flushed with that cold water until he was acclimatized. So the take-home message here is seals will ideally come out of the water, but it takes a lot of energy. And if you give them a choice, they'll go back into the water really slowly to acclimatize to the cold water. If we rush them back into the water, they get cold shock and it has impacts on their physiology that we can't see. So I mentioned tombstoning, another hideous photo of a juvenile tombstoning into the sea, risking serious life-threatening injury. And then this is that stampede video that I said I would show you. I don't know if you can see, but there's a seal here that's already got blood on its side, stampeding over rocks that are likely to result in injury. And the bottom left seal here actually is a frisbee seal. It's got an a flying ring round its neck, which is just dreadful. So, you know, the message for that is, if you're playing with anything on a beach, make sure you leave the beach with it, and preferably don't play with anything that's looped on a beach, because if you do lose it, some animal, marine creature will get caught up in it. Okay, thinking seal for food. So this is an underwater video taken by a diver friend of ours, Dave McBride, off the Isles of Scilly, down out by Longships. It's pregnant adult females in the dark, bar for the lights for the diving torch. She's catching herring by using her vibrissae or whiskers. And what I want you to see is, now we're going to show you it in slow-mo. She's using her whiskers to sense these fish. The slow-mo's coming up. She's about to snatch that tiny herring by its rear end, and without any mouth movements, she has sucked that herring in down in one. So the key thing here is that fish tend to get eaten in one, underwater, out of sight. If they catch something big, they have to bring it to the surface to catch it and eat it, and that's when we see them. That was a world first video, because we knew that common seals did that. We didn't know that grey seals did it. This is also a world first video sent to us by a member of the public, Matt Hawkes, on the Isles of Scilly again. And I don't know if you can see, but in this narrow gully, there is a seal zigzagging from side to side. I think it's an adult female, but to be honest, even me at 20 years, I'm not 100% sure. But what she is doing, we think, is herding the fish, the sand eels, of which, if you watch this on YouTube, down in this corner, there's a little flash of lots of tiny sand eels, herding them up to the end of the gully and then having a feeding frenzy at the end of the gully. And all of these are going down in one, so we can't see them being eaten. Seals will eat more tons of sand eels and dragonets, which are tiny fish, than any other fish, single fish species. So they're going down in one, and we're not seeing it happen. Okay, next thing I'm going to tell you about is genes. So obviously seals are desperate to share their genes and their genetics. This is a beautiful adult female, light spotty adult female, particularly with a light spotty belly. She's called Crosscomb, and I love her to bits. She wants to share her genes. All adult females potentially pup every single year. That's what they're capable of. It's a little bit more complicated than that, because if they don't get fat and fit after they've mated, they probably won't pup next year. But in theory, every adult female can have a pup every single year if they get fat and fit enough and healthy enough. In contrast, males. This is a beautiful adult male chilling out on the beach. Most males, like this male, are non-breeding. They don't really bother with trying to compete for females, and they don't really have any stress in their life. What they do is they sleep, they catch fish and eat, they'll move between places, and then they'll sleep. Sleep, eat, move, sleep, eat, move, sleep, eat, move, blah, blah, blah. What a lovely life they have. That's for most males who are non-breeding. Maybe humans could learn a bit from seal society, hey? Because in seal society, females rule. Nobody messes with a pregnant female in seal society. Bit about these beach masters then. So I mentioned that beach masters are the males who compete for females. This seal in the middle, who you can clearly see is nowhere near as big as the seal on the right. This seal in the middle is the beach master. He's called Feathers. What does he have that means he could dominate a haul out and mate with females? Well, it's the X factor. The answer is we don't really know. But presumably, we think he has to be massively adaptable to whatever circumstances he finds himself in. He has to be patient, because he gets told off by his females an awful lot and told to get lost all the time. So he has to be patient. He has to be pretty empathetic. If you treat your females badly, they won't mate with you. They'll choose a sneaky male who just happens to come along at the right time. And he has to be respectful of his females. So we realized when we lost a beach master back in 2007 that leadership, strong leadership, is a great thing on a haul out. You lose a great leader and it's chaos on the haul out for ages until you get another strong leader. You know what strong leaders are like, they're great. Okay, so this is two beach masters. The main beach master is at the top of the photo and he is being attacked by a wannabe beach master. It's quite unusual to see blood curdling kind of fights in Cornwall. We don't usually get them. I'm going to play this video twice so I can tell you what's going on. But effectively, the main beach master used the power of the wave to take control of the beach. And now the youngster is in trouble and backing and facing off down the beach. I'm going to play it again. So basically, the main controlling beach master is in the position of weakness nearest the sea, and the wannabe beach master is at the position of strength up the beach. But the wily old beach master knows that this wave is coming and it's going to push him into the position of power up on the beach, and now the youngster's in trouble. He cannot afford to turn and run because the beach master might rip the webbing on his rear flippers. So he's going to back and face, and eventually when he knows he can get away, he'll turn and leg it. What do these males fight about? Well, they fight over girlies. Of course they do. And this is a beautiful beach master called Tamfire and his girlfriend Kelp. They are mating. I didn't put the gratuitous photos on to show you, but it was quite clear what was going on when I took the photo. But I feel a bit weird taking photos of seals mating, but they were mating on the beach. And it's incredible because they lie motionless for about 20 minutes. It's a bit like a dog or a fox. Once you're in, you're locked in and you stay, presumably to prevent any other male coming along and messing about with your sperm. Your sperm has plenty of time to get to the right place, do the fertilization thing, and then the female's pregnant. But this was a new bit of brand new science, because I saw Tamfire mate with Kelp on the land, and then look what happened. An hour later, they were mating again, but in the water. And the first video I've got for them is actually out to sea, but they got pushed up by the waves up against this rock and up against this seaweed. And you can clearly see that they are just totally relaxed and chilling. She's quite happy there. He's in his element, having a whale of a time here. And when she's had enough, she will just turn around and tell him to get lost, and he'll have to let go, and that'll be it. So mating on the land, on the sea, and then start again. Mating on the land and then mating in the sea within a short period of time is new science. We did not know that the same seals did that. What happens as a result of that mating? Well, it's a bit of a long story, but mums feed their pups for only 3 weeks, and the pup goes from 10 to 40 kilos, 10 kilos a week. So they go from this skinny, scrawny thing on the left to this great big fat thing on the right. They balloon out like a pup. But mum is emaciated after 3 weeks, and she can't possibly sustain a pregnancy because she's all skin and bone herself. She's given 1/3 of her body weight to a pup to make it this fat, but she mates and fertilizes her egg. She then delays the implantation, and only if that egg implants in 3 months' time will she be pregnant properly and the fetus start to grow. And that will only happen if she's fat and fit enough. So when I said every female can pup every year, yes, she can, but it will only happen if she gets fat and fit enough in the first 3 months after mating. So just to show you what happens, this fast food transfer, fat mum at the top with a skinny, relatively young pup, skinny mum at the bottom with a balloon-sized Zeppelin balloon fat pup at the bottom. This fast food transfer happens, but this is why she can't sustain a pregnancy, because she's stupidly thin and emaciated. Only if she gets to fatten up in the next 3 weeks will she be able to. And this, oh my word, this is the fattest pup I have ever seen. It's molted and feeding off its mother. It's about as fat as its mother. Clearly got to about leave its mother, but yeah, stupidly fat and fit. If a pup isn't this fat, its chances of survival are quite slim, because once its mum weans it, it's got to teach itself to feed, and it's got to learn what to catch and how to catch it. It's a very challenging process, and that pup will live off its fat reserves and get thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner. If they go below 20 kilos, the Sea Mammal Research Unit data shows that they won't make it. So that's the rescue protocol way. Under 20 kilos, and British Divers Marine Life Rescue will kick into gear and rescue them. Okay, so this is a seal sleeping in the sea. I wanted to show you how mobile their whiskers are. They have muscles in their muzzles that will move those whiskers around. That's how they sense for food. And I don't know whether you noticed, I'm just going to play that one again. Don't know if you noticed, but the nostrils open and shut. So nostrils are shut when they're relaxed, and they have to use their muscles to open their nostrils to breathe and to yawn by the looks of it as well. But you can see how big their teeth are and how mobile those whiskers are. Absolutely incredible. They will bottle at the surface and sleep like this. They can sleep lying, logging at the surface as well. That's the most worrying behaviour. And youngsters seem to rest logging at the surface. And it's tempting to think there's something wrong with them, but youngsters often sleep at the surface horizontally, whereas adults seem to spend a bit more time bottling at the surface. Okay, swimming. So where does the power come from? Well, in a sea lion, it comes from the front end with the big flippers, but in a grey seal and a harbour seal, it comes from the rear end. So rare to get clear water like this and be able to see what's going on. Can you see alternate side to side movements of the rear flippers? He's just had a bit of a relax, and now he's had a look around, and now he's going to do side to side, alternately closed, open. Oh, I find it really hard to do this movement. But basically alternate movements, open to push and closed in a backwards motion. And I don't know whether you saw, but that seal did a handbrake turn and 0 to 60 in seconds. So they can do really, really fast swimming, up to 25 kilometers an hour. I think 25 kilometers an hour is their top speed, and 100 kilometers in a day. And remember, Flower did 300 kilometers in 3 days. So really, really fast swimmers. Okay, I might have run a little bit behind time, so I'm going to whiz through this section a little bit. Seal conservation in the UK. I'm going to tell you about the groups that are available and that we speak to give seals a voice. Seal Network UK is our advisory group to the statutory agencies. It was set up in 2019, and it's had some really great engagements. But if we're worried about stuff with seals, we get to directly talk with DEFRA officials about it to put these information on their agendas. This was the very first meeting we had. It was up at the Home Office in London. You can imagine, can't you, how special that felt, representing seals in the Home Office. However, since then, we've had COVID and Zoom, so we don't have to be in the same room anymore, and we can still talk, which is great. I'm now, it's a bizarre phrase, but I am now a trusted person for the Special Committee on Seals, which meet once a year to answer government questions about seals. So we get asked about the kinds of questions that we would like answering in terms of seals. So that's really great, being able to put questions on other people's agendas to get answers for them. More recent is the Marine Mammal Disturbance Partnership. This is really important. It also involves Operation Seabird, because obviously seabirds and seals are quite similar, as I mentioned. It's an NGO and it's run by Natural England, so that's pretty exciting. What's our role in it? Well, our role is to give case studies. So people who sit in offices never see seal disturbance. We need to show them what it's like. And I haven't got a video here, but the top photo shows 18 hauled seals. Then this kayaker arrived and kayaked around here. This is the seals stampeding and tombstoning into the sea. And by the time he finished, there were 3 seals left. Well, that's a really important case study to pass on to people in offices who are making decisions about seals. Disturbance case studies, zoomed out photos so you can see what the seals and the people are doing, and then sending those to statutory agencies. I'm sorry, my cat is about to invade, so you'll have to put up with it. I'm very sorry. He's about to invade us, I think. Right, Clean Catch UK is also a brand new group that's been set up. This is to reduce bycatch, and it's a cross-taxa group. So it's not just birds and seals and cetaceans, it's all species in the sea. He's gone out again. That's good. What role do we play? Well, we provide these case studies, and this is a pretty hideous one. I do apologize about the photos. They're fairly gruesome. So top left, this is a seal called Bird Feeder after he died, with this elongated neck profile. Well, we know what caused this. This was an entanglement of monofilament around his neck. We've matched his fur patterns. This was him. We knew him before he was entangled. And this is the net that was removed from his neck when he died. Teeny weeny little tiny bit of net. This was the last live sighting that we had of him on Christmas Eve in 2020, and he was found dead on the 21st of January. We know he was entangled for a maximum of 2 years and a minimum of 3 to 4 months because of the sightings that we had. But either way, this animal died because of his entanglement. So we provide case studies for that. There is also a Seal Alliance NGO, which is the auspices on which we've done this masterclass, which is really great. All these groups are members of the Seal Alliance. They're community-based research organisations actually doing stuff in the field. Again, just to reiterate, disturbance is always a waste of energy, sometimes results in injury, and occasionally can be fatal several months down the line for a pup or an injured seal. We have a website, a leaflet, a sign and report. So please do visit the website. It's www.sealalliance.org. And this is the outside of the leaflet. I can send leaflets around nationally. I am running low, but if you email sightings@cornwallsealgroup.co.uk, I can send some out to you. And the inside of the leaflet doubles as our sign. So we have sent 90 signs out to north of John O'Groats and south of Land's End, west of Land's End too. So we've sent these signs out. Even if we can't send you a metal laminated sign, we can send you the artwork for you to print your own and laminate your own to put up around the place. They're aimed at appealing to a wide audience, telling people about what disturbance is and what the best practice is. And it's even being translated into French. So if you're in France, you're a French speaking country, please do get in touch. We've got the sign in French and the leaflet in French. And then they've gone up at seal sites around England, Scotland and Wales. This is my favourite one because it's actually got seals in it. So this is on St Mary's Island in North Tyneside. Thank you very much to St Mary's Wildlife and Wildlife Conservation Society for putting this up. This is in Wales, in Gower, and leaflets have also been distributed to operators. We do have 2 reports which we're very willing to share, a national case study report and the Cornwall report from 2019. If you want them, you know who to email. And then I'm going to finish by telling you about one seal and how she joins up the dots. So Lucky Bunting is a seal who's very, very special to me. She was an entangled seal. I saw her entangled and we got her rescued, and I cut the net from around her neck, working with our partners, British Divers Marine Life Rescue. I want to tell you what she's taught us. So this is Lucky Bunting on the day that I first saw her with her trawl net. We abseiled in, going down the left-hand side, and this is us cutting the net off her hideous, hideous wound. Yes, I can see you pulling faces. It's pretty awful, isn't it? Top photo at the middle, however, shows her, I think it's 30 days. It might actually be a 6-month photo, actually, 6 months after we rescued her. And what happened is that her horrid wound healed within 30 days of her necks being seen, because seals have a special marine mammal adaptation to seal up their wound to prevent infection. So they recover really quickly if you can get the net off them. However, she then went through a massive growth spurt, because what we've also discovered is entanglement not only creates hideous wounds, but it stunts their growth. And on a seal that we know to be at least 6 years old, when she was rescued, the size of her skull was the size of a 1-year-old. So that's really hideous and worrying. So when you rescue them, you can put them through this massive growth spurt. So she was humongous. By December 18, 2 years after her rescue, she was starting to look for boyfriends. So she was 5 now. And this is her with her first boyfriend, Fishneck. What we didn't know is this was going to be the first of a series of boyfriends. 4 days later, she had boyfriend number 2, boyfriend number 3, boyfriend number 4, 5 she actually mated with, which is really exciting because we know that she is 5 and he is 10, because he's the seal that I showed you video of going slowly into the water. I've known him since he was a molted pup. So that was really great to see him mating with her. Thought she'd probably then have a hormone trigger and stop faffing about with boys, but no, boyfriend 6 before she stopped faffing about with boys. Then she went walkabout, and when she returned hormone trigger obviously activated now, not messing about with boys, not interested in boys in the slightest. Next time we saw her was tracking backwards and forwards from her favourite mainland haul out site that's quite busy to an offshore site where it was quite quiet. And she tracked backwards and forwards over the next 12 months while she's pregnant, building up this pup between the 2 sites. And the last photo we had of her was actually recorded by a diver who came upon her by chance in September 2019. She would have been heavily pregnant here, but she doesn't particularly look pregnant. So we actually don't know what happened to the 2019 pup, but whatever happened, this male, who's called Mushroom, was being very protective of her. Look at his body language with the diver's camera. That's very defensive. But like any female, she doesn't do what the boys tell her. So she went up to Harry and explored Harry, irrespective of what Mushroom was trying to do and protect her from the diver. Anyway, coincidentally, we've been working with the National Trust at the Pentire offshore site to get some great signs put up ready for the haul out season with Sarah Stevens from the National Trust, and some beautiful design signs. We're sleeping and being disturbed is bad for us. Please do not disturb. Shh. It was a blooming good job that we did that signage and that fencing with the National Trust, because before we knew it, Lucky Bunting had a pup. So this is the 2nd year of pupping potentially. On the first day, look, umbilicus on the pup. First day with the pup, massively busy site with loads of people. Not the best place to have a pup. And my fear was, if we had loads of people visiting this site, there's no way that this pup would have any chance of surviving, because Lucky Bunting would be disturbed. There would be loads of missed feeds. Every feed is about 1% of that pup's nutrition, and if that pup is not fat enough, it won't survive. So what do? Well, the local hub, the Pentire hub, with the National Trust, with British Divers Marine Life Rescue, and with Sequest, which is a wildlife trust group, set up a pup watch. And all these people walking along the cliff did not expect to see a seal that day. They did not know how to act when they did happen upon a seal. So our volunteers were on the cliff top to talk to people and tell them Lucky Bunting's story. It's making me tingle just talking about it, because you can imagine, can't you? Didn't expect to see a seal, and then you learn all about this one, and it's amazing pup, and what an incredible story. So we discovered people not expecting to see seals, no idea how to behave. This is our job. It's our responsibility to talk to people about how to make them act responsibly, and how they can act responsibly, and how they can know what to do. So this pup was successfully weaned. I think it was day 16 we tracked it through to. All these people, thank you, you did the pup watch, and you taught us how invaluable having public engagement on the beach is. So the last section of what I want to talk to you about is this: how we need to engage with the public when we meet them on the cliff. So it's easy for us to have a rush of the heart. We see seals being disturbed. She's got a pup. Oh my God, this is awful. Red mist. My heart's reacting. My head's not working. If that's the case, I can't engage with people because I'm just not talking sense. I'm not thinking straight. I'm not able to talk sense. Best thing I can do is record that disturbance, get that zoomed out video of people and seals and what's happening, get the evidence, get the case study, because we can share that with the statutory agencies to show them what happens. If, on the other hand, you're a bit more experienced and you've seen it all before, at least you think you have, you know, I'm still taught new things, to be fair, I can deal with it with my head. So we have this engagement policy, this advice and guidance, which we're happy to share with anyone. I apologise if it's really small, but I can share it with you. And basically what it says is always be polite and professional. The second paragraph is the best people to respond to disturbance on our patch are the Cornwall Marine and Coastal Code Group. So send your information in about your disturbance evidence that you've recorded. Don't engage with those involved, because the other thing is we have a responsibility to our volunteers. Somebody turns nasty and injures one of our volunteers, we'd feel responsible for that. So just record, don't engage. However, if you think you're going to be able to engage with somebody before a disturbance incident happens, because you know there are seals over there and they're just about to launch their kayak, well, you're not in a red mist. Maybe you can actually talk to them, give them a leaflet, tell them how to act. More better than that, maybe talk them through questions. Have you seen the seals over there? Did you know that seals will be able to hear, see and smell you? So the best thing you can do is actually stay over 100 meters away, and then you'll get to watch them whilst they're out on the rocks, which would be great, but you need to stay 100 meters away. So there are suggestions in this document about when you approach others, particularly if you're trying to prevent a disturbance incident, what to do. You need to be aware of what that person is going to think. They're just about to launch their kayak. The last thing on their mind is a seal. The last thing they want to be done is told what to do. So you need to be aware of that. How to get the best response is by being friendly, open, approachable, patient and tolerant. How to get the worst response is by shouting, going, oi, invading somebody's personal space, going right up to them, being confrontational, humiliating them in public, being rude or aggressive, swearing at them, threatening them, being violent or being hostile. Been there, done that, seen all of those. So they're never great. And what happens is people just go, you, and don't listen, not interested, because they're in the red mist now and they're not listening either. So we've got lots of suggestions in this document about how to go through the engagement process, when to engage and when not. Don't engage afterwards, just record. If you can prevent a disturbance incident, engage, but you have to engage in the right way. Our coast is home to amazing seals, seabirds and cetaceans. We need to help people enjoy them. We're never going to be able to stop people enjoying them. We need to make sure they do it in a responsible way that minimises their impact. If you just tell people to be alert, they might be on the lookout for things and then they'll see things. Whereas if they're not alert, they'll just blunder and accidentally disturb. Top tips: move away to avoid disturbance. If wildlife's looking at you, you're too close. Never follow, chase or feed. Leave stuff how you find it and leave nothing behind. Take it all home with you. Okay, so that's the public engagement policy wording, which we can share with you. But then there's the watching seals well. What do you tell people? What are the key messages? Well, there's an awful lot here. I've just been through actually what the top tips are, those 5 things. I'm just going to go back to it. Look, move away to avoid disturbance. If it's looking at you too close, never follow, feed or chase. Leave stuff how you find it and leave nothing behind. Those are the top tips. But if you want a bit more background, there's this document about how to watch seals well, which is give seal space, disturbance is harmful, put seals first, think seal. Key messaging: disturbance is bad for a seal and it explains why. The signs of disturbance, that's useful. We need to keep the things we need to do and the things we never need to do. These are all on the sign. We use these to inform our sign and our leaflet. But there's a document which is a crib sheet for volunteers who are out and about. Thought that might be useful. And then pups. It's different during pupping season. Pups are particularly vulnerable because if mums smell scent, mums will always prioritise themselves over their pups. It's a bit different for humans, I know, but mums will always prioritise themselves because they know they can have a pup next year. They'll be alive next year. Their pup might not be, it might not make it. So they prioritise themselves over their pup. Key messaging for pups: seen a seal pup, keep away. Remember, the mum will smell, hear and see you. Watch out of sight, never go near it, never put it back in the sea. Ring British Divers Marine Life Rescue if you're worried, the phone number's there. Give pups space, because disturbance is particularly damaging for them, and put pups first. Additional information. Why is disturbance harmful for pups? This is the kind of background knowledge you need when you're talking to people. There's some top tips here. Pups only feed for 3 weeks. They go from 10 to 40 kilos. Every feed is 1% of its nutrition. Underweight pup, if it's underweight in the autumn, there's no way it's going to survive the winter. Got no chance. And then underweight mums in the summer, because they've been disturbed, will lead to underweight pups in the autumn, will lead to dead pups in the winter. That's the kind of useful background information to have. We're asking people to follow advice on signs, keep off any beach where there's seal pups, any beach. Don't walk on a beach if there are seal pups. That's our advice. No, it's difficult, but it's the best advice. And then keep out of sight and silent on any cliff top if you're watching a pup. And then particularly if you're putting stuff online, don't put it online while the pup's still there. Or if you're talking about a pup, don't say that it's current, and certainly don't say where it is. Never put seal pupping sites online. And then if this is a useful resource for you, well, here you go then. This is our grey seals in the southwest fact sheet, but I can give you a Word version so you can edit it. For any volunteers that we've got in the field, this is a great crib sheet for all the things, the factual information that people might ask about. Seal species, numbers of seals, seal anatomy, seal life cycle, seal senses, seal behaviour, seal food, seal people and dogs, threats to seals. It's all there, and then how to help. So if those documents are useful, they are available and we're happy to share. So I'm just going to finish off then, doing okay for time. Seal society is stupidly complicated. Human society is complicated. Why would seal society be any different? Bearing in mind they're all individuals. They spend their entire life as an individual. They move around on their own. The only time they group together with other seals is for the safety of a haul out, when they are resting, hauling out and resting on the land. There's no such thing as an average seal. Oh my word, I've learned that. I say one thing about seals and they prove me wrong within 5 minutes. It's absolutely classic. And then who knew seals in Cornwall were so well travelled? It'll be the same for you. No matter what part of the country you're in, your seals will be very well travelled and cover a big area. They need joined up protected habitat for their different seal seasons. So this particular seal is different to every other seal. It will have one site in the summer, one site in the molting season, and one site during the pupping season. And that combination of sites is likely to be different for every other seal that it ever comes into contact with. So for example, in Looe, Duchess and Looe seals spend the entire summer together. When they leave for the pupping season, they go to different places, and when they go to molt, they go different places, but they do spend the summer together. They have different combination of sites. And then whether we like it or not, we are already impacting big time on their health, welfare and their mortality. So this is the time for action. If you don't feel inspired to do something about it, we really need to help them now. They need our help if they are to survive what's coming, because what's coming is quite scary. So we do have a shop, an online shop, and we do have a wild seal supporter scheme, which gives you real seal stories in real time about stories like Lucky Bunting and Tulip Bell. We do have stuff on our social media channels. We do rely on donations. So we're not charging from this talk, but if you've enjoyed it and you fancy chucking a couple of quid in the pot, that would be great. You can donate on our Seal Research Trust shop site, which is linked off our Seal Group site, cornwallsealgroup.co.uk. Just go to the shop bit and there's a donate button at the top. But I do want to thank all our volunteers. I cannot do this on my own. I just speak for them. Massive thanks. All our volunteer citizen scientists who go out and record. Out in the rain this morning, it was hideous. Out in the middle of winter, it's freezing cold. They go out in Wales, Somerset, Devon, Cornwall, Dorset and Hampshire. You know who you are, and you make these discoveries. Down the bottom left, it's what these people do. So these people who are out all year round are the eyes and ears for seals on their patch. looking for changes, looking for worries, looking for issues, looking for pressures, keeping an eye on them and alerting everybody else when there's a problem. They conduct surveys and count data for our research. They process photos. They make and confirm IDs. They sit at a computer and digitize the data, turning it into a format we can put in our database. Then we pump the data out of our database. And we've got volunteers who analyze our data. I was talking to one Ross last night, analyze our data, write them into reports for us so we can share them more meaningfully with other organisations, statutory agencies, you and the volunteers who've collected the data. Fundraise for us. They fundraise for us. So we're just about to appoint a fundraising support officer, volunteer who's going to come up with loads of ideas about how you can fundraise at work, at home, at school, when you're out and about, all that kind of stuff. And they are our ambassadors and champions for this globally rare species. We cannot do it without them. So please consider donating if you've enjoyed the talk. That would be great. There is another one coming up, which is a Seal Alliance SharePoint session. This is where all the groups around the UK get their 7 minutes to tell us what they've been up to and what their achievements are. It will be on the 11th of November, the 11th of the 11th. So it's quite easy to remember. This is the 9th of the 9th, and this is the 11th of the 11th coming up. And we will be on Eventbrite from the 23rd of September. But my final request is please complete our Survey Monkey. If you've got a mobile phone, shove it up to the screen now and follow that QR code, and it will take you straight to our Survey Monkey questionnaire. Our funders, so the Green Recovery Challenge Fund, require us to do this. It's the most, well, it's not the most interesting part of your thing that you could give us back, but it's absolutely critical to us. Our fundraisers like to know what people think of us, and this is your way of telling us what you think of us, good, bad, or indifferent. We tend to do positive things, negative things, and things that we can improve on, please. We like to know them. And then interesting things, things that you'd love to find out about. And that's it, folks. I'm going to stop sharing. I have actually managed to do it in record time. I expected it to take just over 2 hours, so I've done really well. I'm going to take a quick drink. If you want to put some questions in the chat, I will start answering them in about 2 or 3 minutes time. Sarah, if you're at all, we haven't planned this, but if you're at all up for it,